remember one time we was on the trip and we went to Georgetown. We were able to go in John Thompson's office, and he had a deflated basketball in there. And I'm referencing the basketball because that's the thing I know most about. Right. He had a deflated basketball in there, and his question was big hands. He was like, "What are you going to do when the air runs out?" And that was a scary statement, because who are you outside of this? And what are you doing to, like, you go to practice for hours, work on your physical and stuff like that. But how are you strengthening yourself? How are you becoming more educated, more aware of your surroundings, more aware of the subtle hindrances and might I say enemies that are in your circle? How are we really going to deal with the truth that I got to be 5 different people going to and from school, So I basically got to be a controlled schizophrenic, going to and from my house just to make it home safe. And then I got to perform when the whistle blows. And everybody wants me to make it. How am I going to deal with these things? That's the things when that air runs out. And very few people are prepared to have these conversations with these young men and women, for that matter. Right. And right now, most of these guys, they have not even been in a space where they can take critique from a grown man.
Yeah, no.
So how do you expect to learn and overcome those challenging moments if you can't take the critique and experience that somebody who with experience is trying to give you? You don't know how to even receive it. So absolutely needs to begin at an earlier stage. I would say as early as middle school.
I would say earlier than that, Kay. I probably would say now, especially with most youth sports moving to getting younger to start to train on that one sport, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, tennis, soccer. Most of these kids, 2nd and 3rd grade now, are getting intense with focusing just on one sport, which is something I don't necessarily agree with. I prefer a multiple sport athlete over a one sport athlete any day of the week. And that has something to do, I think, with brain chemistry and your physiology and working different parts of your brain to excel and problem solve and execute, along with the motor skills and the muscle memory that it takes to strengthen your entire body, right, including your brain. So there's some science to that. But we have to start at an early age managing and dealing with adversity. And sometimes kids need to be told, listen, you lost because those kids were better than you.
Yes.
Right? And guess what? If you want to become better, use that as motivation. Go work. Right? We're not out here giving out participation trophies to everybody.
Yeah. Right. I think what you're talking about really is a microcosm for what our society has kind of evolved into. Because if you notice, even at the presidential level, right? Like our president, I think he had a press conference yesterday. He just walked. He can't handle people with world level power, can't handle being questioned, can't handle being critiqued. And that's one of the things, like, I know, like, the coaches that I played for when I was young, they would almost probably be in jail now. I mean, they wouldn't be allowed. Now, these are men, these are former ex-military people like my dad was, like, just didn't play. Like, it wasn't a matter of, you having to say, well, I don't feel like it. We weren't even allowed to articulate that stuff. And you experience that now, right, in grassroots basketball, which I'm heavily involved in. This is to your point earlier about loving yourself. If you ask a college coach right now, most college coaches in the country will tell you that they are very skeptical of recruiting 7-foot guys. And I asked one of them one time, why? He said, because most 7-foot players, they're the most insecure people in the sport. The tallest guys are usually the most internally insecure. And then he said the second thing is they've been forced to play and haven't developed a real love for the sport.
True.
And, you end up finding, and I always feel sorry for them. And I don't even know if it's the right thing, but how many times have you seen a big 7-foot kid and you like, man, what happened, right? Like, what?
All the time.
Right. And to me, a lot of that is what you're talking about. If somebody was able to get to that kid when he was 11, when he was 9, right? When he's standing head and shoulders above everybody. But, I used to have this thing where I would slump over as well. And my aunt had to smack me in the back of my head one day, like, yo, if I ever catch you doing that again, it's going to be worse. And so I understand what you're saying with these kids and having to reach them early, because particularly with the bigger kids, it's a struggle getting them to just love themselves, embrace the fact that they got big hands. Like, I had big hands, big feet. Man, I've been wearing a size 17 since I was in 7th grade. And I didn't grow until 10th grade, man. So you talking about dealing with all kind of stuff going to school. You know, it's just what it is. Yeah. So I'm happy that you guys are doing the work that you're doing, because I think that another major part of it is this distraction piece. And that's what I want to ask you now. So how do you work? And this is even for the pro athletes, because I was in the Warriors locker room and Steve came in one time and he lost it, because I'm from the old school. Once the game starts, my phone is off. But like this new age of guys, every time guys go in the locker room, it's in their phone. They looking at Twitter, they looking at what people are saying about their performance in the first half, and it becomes a distraction. So what would you tell athletes now to deal with the distraction? Sometimes that pulls them away from their ultimate focus, which is, on-court performance.
The biggest thing is boundary setting. So we're big, right? Obviously, you know what RTP is, and Ricky, you probably know as well. So it's the Rookie Transition Program. Every year I do the RTP. I get 13 to 18 rookies come in the room. You got the NBA Players Association. Rex Chapman came last year and talked about his opioid addiction. It was great, well received, the whole 9 yards. But we talk about what your NBA life is going to look like. One of the biggest things we talk about is time management and boundary setting, right? What boundaries are you going to set for yourself to be successful, right? Mm-hmm. And you need some help, but you also need some discipline, and you need to understand that you need to allow people to hold you accountable when you are crossing over that line and stepping all over the boundary that you set for yourself and they have set for you. And we can't waver on that. And it has to be a question when you get that old. How successful do you want to be? Because if you don't accept what those boundaries are, and if you continue to step over them, if you're a perpetual line stepper, then guess what? Success is probably not on the horizon. And you have to live with that, right? That's what you have to own. Not everybody's going to get that.
Also, what I'll tell you is that you have to establish a destination. Again, certain experiences allow you to do this. But again, another trip we went on in high school, we went to the Boston Celtics practice. I lied to you not. Larry Bird literally practiced going from a catch to a triple threat position. He probably did this for about an hour straight on the side. So when we got a chance to ask questions, I asked him, why were you doing that? So he got one of our guys, he got up and he passed him the ball 5 times. 5 different times, dude was in a different position when he came to the triple threat. He said, look, I'm not the fastest guy in the world. He said, I'm not having time to think about where the ball is, when I catch it. I already have to have memory to where I need to go with this thing, and catching the ball and getting it right in my hands is not one of the things that I want to think about when I'm about to do my thing. So putting that in real life, he made something a practice, a habit, because he had a destination. So if you have a destination, you simplify the choices. Is something going to be helpful or harmful getting me to this destination? So to the point where it's down to even picking up my phone. Right now, I'm in the locker room. Is this helpful or harmful? If it's one or two things, it's an easy question. You think this is helpful, but when I got to go play this game, nah, put it down. It's harmful. You simplify the situation. You make that a practice. Now it's something you don't even got to think about because it's in your routine. And you're like, all right, right now I'm on this destination and this don't fit over here. So putting this now.
Unfortunately, what I will say is that even with that being said, because of changes to athletes and the response to it, we're probably going to get to a point where they're probably going to allow some of that to happen, and there are going to be time limits on how often you can check it, right? So Cliff Kingsbury, he comes to the NFL. One of the things that he institutes is he allows his guys to check their phones. He has phone breaks for them in meetings because he recognizes that he's dealing with these millennials.
Right.
And if you can't beat them, join them. So the other part of that on the opposite end of it is everybody has to adjust. Everybody has to adapt to what's going on. Because as you know, you may lose the guys. And if you lose the guys, they're the most important commodity anyway. So we've got to figure out a way to kind of compromise and say, okay, well, maybe during games we won't do it, but maybe we'll have some breaks game time is all about our focus and being locked in. So before and after, we're going to institute this policy, and that's how we're going to manage it.
Right.
When we're in film sessions, we're going to break. We're going to allow you to engage in that process. Because I thought what he did, made a lot of sense because he recognized I'm dealing with a group of 19 to 22-year-old guys in here. And that's all they know. It's become, it's easier for us to put our phone down and not look at it because we lived during a time when
you ain't had one. Right.
They haven't. So most of them, since they were 3 years old, 3 or 4, they've been soothed by some form of technology. Some of that is about being able to compromise and understand it's checkers and not chess.
Chess, not checkers.
Chess, not checkers. I'm sorry. Appreciate the pickup, big bro. But at the foundation of it, we should always be working on how we manage ourselves, our emotions, right? If we can, the choices that we make, the consequences of that, and being able to live with them and understand that, and also recognize that a lot of times what prevents us from engaging in a behavior or having an opinion or doing something is we're concerned about what someone else's perception of what we're doing is going to be. And that limits us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so concerned about how you're perceiving what I'm going to do. Even if it's for me and my health, I'm not.
It took me watching Karl Malone to start shooting jumpers in the NBA. Like a coach had to come tell me, yo, you got a completely wrong view of how this thing is going to go and your career is not going to go the way you think it's going to go if you don't change. And I'm like, because I had been bred like, you a big man, you got to score at the basket. You got to score in the paint. But the reality was I wasn't big enough physically and strong enough physically when I came in the league to do that. So it took me literally I said, okay, I got to accept the fact that I'm going to have to shoot 15 to 17-foot jump shots that make a career for myself. And I can't worry if somebody says, oh, man, you floating out to the perimeter. Man, I can score at the basket, but I'm only 225 pounds right now. Shaq, 315.
Absolutely.
And you know what I mean? So it's crazy what you're saying because a lot of times we find ourselves just adjusting. And in my case, it was, you need to change the way you literally play and you can't worry about how people are going to perceive your game because you need to create a career for yourself.
Destination.
Yeah.
You had a destination. And thank God you developed that. It probably gave you an extra 6 years on your career.
What? Man.
You know what I mean?
Like extra 10.
A mid-range is like an apple a day.
Right.
Boy, I got to shoot something back at you, man. How do you feel mentally about some of the numbers that these dudes are pulling down when they have not, I'm like, you don't even have good level of perfection at any point of the game.
Right.
Do you think that is helpful or harmful to the younger generation coming up?
Good question. So I think it's harmful because what I find is that guys are chasing the perks. So all these perks that come with, making the NBA and being successful. So they tend to focus on the perks. And so when you see guys, I outlasted guys because I was like, to hell with the fame and the fortune. I got to have real production on this floor. And the impact that I leave on a team has got to be far beyond just a highlight. It's got to be on the court, the intelligence of the team, on-court performance, the toughness of the team, how sound we are in the locker room. Those are the things that I allowed to sort of follow me around the NBA as I took on my journey. I don't think that guys now understand that because we live in this clip society from social media, you got guys who are overachieving and getting put in places that they shouldn't be. Some guys fall victim to it. Some guys adjust. Some guys figure it out. Some guys, the worst thing that guys deal with in coming in the NBA is getting attacked. And I think one of you guys said it earlier, from the time you 9 to you 18, 20, everybody said, oh, you the greatest, you the greatest, you the greatest. You get in the NBA and you're facing this 31-year-old man who is on the second to last year of his deal, and he knows he has to have a really good game. He has to dominate you, and he goes at you. I've seen more careers in that way than the other way. So I think that guys end up seeing the perks, seeing the reward, and they overlook the work that's right in front of them. And oftentimes they end up getting caught. That's why you end up with a team like ours where in Indiana, we had one McDonald's All-American. Everybody else was ranked 200, ranked 300, not, Lance Stevenson was the only All-American we had on the whole roster.
Wow.
Yeah.
Paul George wasn't All-American?
No. Paul George actually was told he wasn't going to play in the NBA. Was told he wasn't going to make it. Because, again, he was a taller guy. He wasn't embracing playing inside, but he ain't no big man.
I got it. Yeah, that team.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Yeah. But again, it's like, it's that question of when you see, I listen to all these people talk about how the mid-range, right, is a bad shot. Taking, mid-range jumpers is a bad shot. But it's hilarious now because we're watching this Last Dance thing, right? All we're watching is Michael Jordan be successful hitting, literally the greatest player hitting mid-range jump shots, right? So it's always this thing of like perception versus reality, right?
Right. I tell these young cats all the time, like, yo, if you think you getting 30 alone on offense, you're sadly mistaken. You need some steals, you need some putbacks, you need some breakaway. On offense alone, that is damn near impossible to do that. And you're going to burn out.
Right.
When it matters, the team, that defensive coach has a scheme that's designed to stop you. You better understand what you're dealing with. And it's only 24 seconds on that clock, so you ain't going to get as much time as you think.
Well, Kendell, this has been a great conversation. For our listeners and our viewers, where can they go to learn more about you guys, check out more, and follow you all?
Our social media handle is @DockinTheDude, DockinDude. I got to pull up his slack. What are you doing? And our email is dockinthedude1@gmail.com. Now you can say .com. On an email, bro.
And you guys are also syndicated radio too. You guys have some reoccurring appearances there.
Oh yeah, we do some stuff on like Swaying in the Morning, Breakfast Club.
Morning Hustle out of Atlanta, Didi in the Morning.
And we're starting our personal thing that we'll be shooting some episodes this week, Off the Rails, and we talk about an array of issues, and we got real life people, real life situations. I know everybody right now is live. Everybody live with the celebrity thing. Some of our friends happen to be celebrities, but most of the time, what we getting at is real information from real validated people, and we can relay it. And hopefully, it's good shareable information that's going to help. We'll be putting out information starting this week, and hopefully, you guys can help us share the word.
Absolutely. I got one more question for both of you guys. Morning routines. What kind of morning? What is the first thing you guys do when you hop up in the morning?
First thing for me, before I move at all, before I get out of bed, some sort of breathing routine, right? Deep through the nose, slow out through the mouth. I try to get at least between 30 seconds and a minute in, before you do anything, because breathing is a very good detergent of thoughts, of clutter, or a lot of things, So before you start receiving things, you got to clear some things. It just, it's not enough room. That's my daily morning and before I go to sleep.
Good deal.
For me, when I wake up, I usually engage in some form of a quiet meditation, and it doesn't last very long. Usually like a minute and a half for me, 2 minutes max. And then I will get into the notes in my phone and kind of accomplishments for the day. Short-term, long-term accomplishments for the day, even down to the very simple things that we don't think are successful for us. But if we've accomplished something and we've set out to accomplish it, then we're training ourselves to complete those tasks and then acknowledge the success associated with completing even the simplest tasks, because it's good practice for you. But I try not to have more than 5 to 10 things on that list to accomplish and work through them, and then go back to it, kind of remove it from the list. And then also, just I think that it's very important, believe it or not, we get up in the morning, should at least have 1 or 2 glasses of water.
Right, there you go. That's my first thing. I chug about 16 to 20 ounces of water as soon as I wake up. Just turn my body on.
Very important to drink some water. We underestimate how important the simple things from a nutrition standpoint impact. As Ricky drinks some water. I got you, Rick. See?
And I stretch. Occasionally I'll get into a form of a kata or something, but I stretch for sure. I maintain heavy flexibility, and more times than not, people don't understand it. You don't get sick. You know what I mean? You don't have those ailments when you work those kinks out. And fortunately enough, been pretty healthy.
Well, we appreciate it, guys. It's been awesome.
Thanks, fellas. We appreciate the time, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, man. We'll be back at y'all.